to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Shumway?
Present.
Mr. Johnson?
Present.
Mr. G.
John Boros is going to be the first to begin the evening, which I know is different with an announcement for all of you. And I'm going to ask, and I'm going to say it one time, we are all professionals, and the noises and the grunts and the cackling and the laughter is not acceptable for anybody. So I'm going to ask that you don't. If you can't control that emotion, I will ask the Rangers to remove you from the room. Thank you.
I have a letter dated today, November 5th, 2014, from Louis Mucci to Judge Mandel. Lou Mucci, former Geauga Park District Commissioner, I say former, has resigned his post, his commissions, Geauga Park District Commissioner, effective today. So that will be read into the record.
Okay. I'd like to begin the meeting with a volunteer of the month. Steve Allenson. Is Steve here?
Yeah, I'm here.
Terrific. Come on up to the podium, Steve. We implemented this program this year in acknowledging the Volunteer of the Month because I think it's so important to acknowledge to everyone in the county how much Geauga Park District depends upon the volunteers and how much they contribute to the Park District. So for Steve Allenson, who first came to the Geauga Park District in 2008, seeking volunteer opportunities that meshed with his third shift work schedule. He serves as a trail gator at the Westwoods, ensuring that the park is in good shape for visitors. Steve soon began volunteering for programs, serving as an exhibit guide for many of the large-scale exhibits at the Westwoods, assisting with saps arising and maple sugaring programs, and this summer assisted with the inaugural Patron Canoe Race. And I want to personally thank you because I'm thrilled. We have very positive response for that. Steve's work takes him deep into the salt mines under Lake Erie, and he was able to bring salt crystal donations to the Naturalist Department for use in their geology programs. Steve recognized that the conservation efforts of the park would mesh well with the Cargill Corporation's initiative of community service. He organized a team of his employees to spend a paid Cargill Day working alongside Geauga Park District's Natural Resource Management team in land stewardship projects. For more than 5 years, Steve and his Cargill team have given 2 days a year, one in the spring and one in the fall, and have worked on invasive species removals at Throwing Meadows, Sunnybrook Preserve, Westwoods, and Swine Creek, and have transformed the fairways at Orchard Hills Park with their restoration efforts. Additionally, Steve has connected his organization's Cargill Care Foundation with the Geauga Park District Foundation, providing financial support for the Nature Scopes program. His dedication to Geauga Park District benefits many. A humble thank you, Steve, for all your hard work. Okay, so we have the meeting minutes from the September 9th regular meeting. Brian, did you have any comments in regards to the minutes?
No.
None? So do you want to make a motion to approve the September 9th, 2014 board minutes?
So
And I'm going to second that motion.
Mr. Johnston? Mrs. Shumway?
Yes. Okay, then we have the presentation of the financial statements for the finance. Michelle. Michelle, you can introduce yourself, sorry, when you're up there, just so that everybody knows who you are. Please.
My name is Michelle Pennell, and I'm the Director of Business and Visitor Services here with the Park District. And I will begin with the September financial statement. And just so everyone's aware, usually I do 1 month. This month I will be doing the presentation of 2 months of financial statements, as well as the voucher presentation and the pre-approvals. We began the month of September with, in the general fund, with $7.5 million, a little over $7.5 million. We had expenditures of $402,261.29. Revenue of $421,096.77, ending the month of September with $7,592,647.96. Land Improvement Fund began the month of September with $3,697,219.52. Expenditures were $73,354.15. Revenues of $70,958.77. The biggest revenue in that particular month was a grant reimbursement from the Land and Water Conservation Fund for a wetland acquisition that actually occurred in previous years, and the grant was finally finished. That was $70,000. Ending balance for September for the Land Improvement Fund was $3,694,824.14. Retirement Reserve Account began the month with $82,425.79. Only transaction was investment income of $2.13. We don't get to invest it. The county treasurer gets to invest it through very tight, stringent requirements. Ending the month of $82,427.92. Total expenditures are shown there. If you have any questions on the voucher detail, the payment detail. If not, I would ask that we go ahead and make a motion to accept them into the minutes for the September vouchers.
So
I vote second.
Mrs. Shumway?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
yes.
Okay, moving on to October. We began the month right where we left off at the ending of September. We brought in $591,095.40. The biggest expense change there was because there were 3 pays in the month of October for our staff, last one being October 31st. We brought in revenue of $22,020.58, including a sale of a Ford Explorer at the auction, which brought in a little over $5,000. We have had a good year in auction proceeds. You'll see that from your end. We'll do a report for you. The ending monthly total for October is $7,023,573.14. The Land Improvement Fund had $131,368.11 in voucher or expenditures. It brought in $1,003.52, mostly from royalties, and royalties from existing properties that were purchased and had them on them. Ending fund balance for October in the Land Improvement Fund is $3,564,459.59, and the Retirement Reserve Account had $2.84 in income and ended the month with $82,430.76.
Good investment again, huh?
What's that?
I said that whole retirement investment program.
Yes.
Okay.
And I will request that you take a look at the October expenditures as well. And if you have any questions, you may ask them now, and if not, we can, I do request that you make a motion to accept them into the minutes.
Okay, this is to accept in the October financial statements, but not the pre-approvals, correct?
Not the pre-approvals, these would be the payments that we made during the month of
Just
October.
double checking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Brian, I'm sorry, you want to make that motion?
So moved.
I would second that motion.
Mrs. Shumway?
Vote yes.
Mr. Johnston?
The last piece of paper you have for us is the pre-approvals. These are items that fit within our guidelines that we have in our purchasing guideline manual. You will see that this is a combined list for October and November. We did highlight some of the items that were from the previous month in yellow so you can see. They are in alphabetical order. There are a few in here that are down payments, for instance, for an upcoming Frozen Fest in February that do require a down payment now. We do show if there's a balance due that it will be paid in 2015 using 2015 money, but we wanted to give a sense of what it was going to cost for those particular items.
Okay, the only question I have is we have in here an annual membership fee of $1,000 for Geauga Growth Partnership. And I would like someone from Geauga Growth Partnership to come and speak to us as to why we should pay $1,000 to be a member of theirs. So if we could remove that item, I would go ahead and pre-approve the request for October, November. Brian, did you have any questions?
This is one on the miscellaneous vendor.
Yes.
It's $12,844 for materials for trail. What exactly is that?
That is an amount, we budgeted in our budget a certain amount, I don't know off the top of my head, I'm going to throw a number out there, like 75,000, but it could be off, sorry, I don't know off the top of my head, but that is for observatory trails, the observatory park trails that are going in, and that is the remaining balance that has not been currently already used by the vendor. And so this would be used for now through the end of the year to put in additional amenities that the guys in our operations and grounds facility and planning see fit, and additional topping of stone as well. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yeah, it's the balance of the funds that were determined prior to starting the construction. It's to get us through the 30 days roughly where there's no action or purchasing taking place, so that we have material to continue to work.
It would still have to adhere to certain requirements, like
Correct.
the vendors, if it's over a certain amount, they have to have quotes, all of those other guidelines would still play a part.
The only other one is for the $5,000 for Reminger for contract increase. Is that going to be over at the end of this year or no?
That would be up to you.
Okay, well, Dave, are we using them right now or no?
I know they were retained for a specific reviews of personnel issues, and to my knowledge, I think those have been all resolved, so I would hazard a guess that they're probably not going to be continuing on any future work until you find a special project of any form.
Okay, is it safe to say that there's not an automatic renew of any type of contract with them?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Ignore on that.
All right, thank you.
So then that would withdrawing that manager increase in contract?
I don't know if I would withdraw it. We've only paid through September, so we will need that additional funds if there's been any contact with them in the month of October.
So Michelle, is the request then for funds over and above what they've
already been paid?
Okay, yeah, I think you're stuck then. You need to.
Yeah,
Right.
and if it's not used, it does get closed out. But this would be an up to amount, up to 5,000 additional for the month, what they've already spent basically.
But we wouldn't increase contracts with them. Okay, just so that we have that clear.
Now, I'll call basically inquiry where we're at. So
Okay.
we plan through the end of the year.
Okay, so then we're looking at 84, still 137, 18, correct?
What was the one that you had wanted?
The $1,000 withdrawal from Geauga Growth Partnership until they can come and tell us what that membership would
Yes.
bring to the park district and to the citizens of the county. I just want to be clear. I don't want to make an assumption that I know what they provide, and I would like them to tell us.
Yeah, Robin may be able to speak a little bit on this. In the past, we have used them for some of the seasonals and bringing in some internships as well. But we definitely can have them come in and do some kind of presentation or give us a package of what else we get for that particular $1,000.
Okay, because as I understand it, we have a list of people wanting to do internships here at the park in all different areas. Correct me if I'm wrong, John? Yeah. So I wouldn't want to pay somebody to do something we don't need.
I believe they're also associated with this in one way or another.
Okay, well, good. If they can explain it to us.
But I will confirm that and we will
Okay.
get that in here. That is all I have.
Does that,
So is there a
You
motion
still need to make a
accept
motion.
them with?
I'm asking Brian, did you need more clarification?
No, I'm good.
You're good? So you would make a motion, or I can make a motion, to accept the pre-approval of October, November for $84,137.18.
Second.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mrs. Shumway?
Vote yes. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, unfinished business, which is park development and planning. Karen, would you introduce yourself too, please? Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Aaron Young, I'm the Director of Planning and Operations. For the board, you have the monthly report for October, November in front of you, as well as the updated version of the 2014 construction cost summaries. You will note that the asphalt improvements to Bessie Banner Metzamon Park are complete. You have the balance of the contract shown there, approximately $16,406.38 under budget, which is about 20.3%. The Orchard Hills Park Playground has been done for some time now, and we're continuing to close out the Maple Highlands Trail South and Chardon projects, as well as the Observatory Park Connector Trail projects, which Observatory is complete. We're about 11.4% under there. South is substantially complete as of this week, so it is open to the public and free to use. We are about 0.1% under with that, and Maple Highlands Trail Chardon Connector was paved at the beginning of the week. We are expecting completion by the end of next week. We are approximately 8.2% under budget.
Okay. Can you just briefly explain what happened with Maple Highlands Trail South, that we were so close, because normally you do such a tremendous job?
Yeah, we have contingencies built in the construction for everything that's underground that we can't see, and what we found is under the railroad right away there was a lot of things that we didn't see.
Okay. That's pretty self-explanatory.
The figure you gave us for the asphalt improvement, the difference is 16,691.18. What did you say it was?
I'm showing 16,406.38. The cover page is a link summary to the detailed breakdown that you also got as part of the back. Usually if there's an error, it's reflected on both sheets. Sometimes the Excel doesn't carry it through, so we can check there.
What was the percentage difference?
20.3%.
All right, yes, it's showing 20.7. All right, thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. Well, we have the amendment to the bylaws. And this would be for a motion to approve Section 21, Resolution 28-14, which was presented for review September 9th, 2014. Consistent with the purpose set forth in Article 1, park activities, including preservation, conservation, and approved outdoor activities will include and may be conducted on parkland pursuant to the provisions of ORC 1545-09 and 1545-11, and subject to the rules and regulations as amended from time to time by the Park Board. Did you have questions?
Well, you said activities, it reads recreation.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Correct that?
Yes, sorry, where did I read activities and accept? Activities there? Oh, I'm sorry, let me correct it. Article 21, consistent with the purpose set forth in Article 1, park activities, including preservation, conservation, and approved outdoor recreation, will include and may be conducted on park land pursuant to the provisions of ORC, Ohio Revised Code 154509 and 154511, and subject to the rules and regulations as amended from time to time by the Park Board.
Any motion to accept?
I would second the motion to accept.
Or to approve it.
Approve. Motion to approve Section 21, Resolution 2814.
Mrs. Shelley?
Vote yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Aaron,
I'm sorry?
you're up again.
All right. Life. We'll see. Yeah, I guess this way. Aaron was asked, Aaron Young is head of our operations and planning department. Natural resource management is also within his department. A couple months back, the commissioners and I started talking with him and asked him to put together a presentation on the A to Z of what a park planning project might look like. So Aaron's here to do that, is to help familiarize the Board of Park Commissioners with our planning process, what it takes to put a park project on the ground, if you will. So enjoy. You see, it's a pretty lengthy process.
That's one of these. If it gets too dark, we can turn it back on, but you want to be able to see the slide instead of warms up. It's a little dark. Can everybody see that? Does it work? Well, I'm going to move around so I'm not standing up there speaking behind everyone, if that's appropriate. As John indicated, the summary that you're about to see is the preferred process that we'd like to go through internally here, from taking a project from concept all the way to construction. And so we like to talk about it. This is really the nuts and bolts of how we get to where we are, from when somebody says, wouldn't it be cool if, to the grand opening. I've changed some of the graphics. I know staff and Mary Ruth has seen this once before. Lou and Mary Ruth were there at the beginning of the year for the same type of presentation. Brian, this will probably be the first time you've seen it here live in this format. And part of the reason I changed the graphics is because I know members of the public have seen it. Mr. and Mrs. Jones, I actually got to see this earlier in the year, so I changed it up a little bit so that you wouldn't fall asleep. So, but a lot of the data and a lot of the content is the same. This is kind of the life cycle of a project here internal. And what we're going to do is, what you're going to see tonight is, we're going to start at the top with project identification, and we're going to go around the horn until we get back to the construction administration portion and ultimately finishing the project and opening it up to the public. This graphic you're going to see, we're going to try to maintain this cycle as we go through the presentation, and in the end it's going to be shown again. But part of that is just to reflect to you that it's a 2-year typical cycle for what we prefer to do in terms of taking a project from start to finish. And when you start to identify a schedule that is less than that 2-year typical cycle, which we're talking about right here, you're going to see that some of these steps, there's just not the time to do those steps to get to the end. And then, although it's not our preferred method of taking the project through, it is a method of getting it done. So once we know the time frame, we know the steps that we're going to go through, but our preference is to do this whole cycle for every new park development. And you're going to see I've got that shown up here, and it's on all of the slides. This is typical for new park development. This is not typical for annual maintenance, problems that arise with parks that we have to go out and address in terms of asphalt, stone, or if a tree falls down, or some of those smaller things with regards to what we deal with. This is really for the new parks, and in the past it would have been the same type of cycle that we went through for Orchard Hills, Bass Lake Lodge, Chickadee Park, Observatory Park, and those are just some of the newer parks that we've done in my tenure, which has been 9 going on 10 years. But before I go, this is the typical time frame and also the months that we tend to see those. You don't always start everything in January, but if the timing and the month was ideal, you'd be in January 1, and it basically takes a year to get the whole design done. And then once you get into bidding and award, which starts the construction phase, you're looking at another year. So you're looking at a whole year's time to get to here, and then another year to get it complete. And with regards to construction, being here in Geauga County, you know what that means. You've only got about 4 to 5 months of when that's an appropriate time. So when I say a year, keep in mind that that's the 4 to 5 month time frame that we're able to do work outside, which is going to end here shortly, I would imagine. Let's start off with project identification. The slide you're going to see, the format's all the same. We're going to start with the wheel on the left and go around. On the right are some of the key items as part of that phase of design. And then there's a graphic down to the right, which is really just a typical representation of what we're talking about above it. But we're going to start with project ID, and we're going to go around the horn. Typically, we like to see the projects identified as part of our long-term strategic plan. And in the past, you've known we've been through 2 shorter-term strategic plans, and we're currently embarking on moving forward with the 2015 to 2025 strategic plan. Next is some projects are simply identified by administrative directive. We are directed to move forward with a project that would typically come from the board or the executive director position. Next is annual preventative maintenance. With all these facilities, the guys we have in the field, they see the parks, they see the improvements every day. They come back, they identify, hey, X amount of shelters are going to need painted within the next 5 years. We need to budget for that. This trail needs resurfaced, or this asphalt is not responding appropriately. We need to be repaved. Those are just some typical examples of annual preventative maintenance. Next is observed use improvements, and this is actually one of my favorites because when we have a park, over time you will see how that park is used by the visitors. And sometimes you'll see that the park is used in a manner that's alternative to what the original design was. That doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it wrong, it just makes it how it is. That's how people are using the park. The planning department takes pride in going out and seeing how things are being used. Do we need to adjust internal? And do we need to revise, edit, improve any physical improvement on that property as a result of how it's being used? And 2 of the projects that we're working on now, which is Froy Meadows Phase 2 and the Headwaters Park improvements, are perfect examples of observed use improvements. And then finally, this is when we start talking about schedule. Somebody has a great idea, they follow it up with, yeah, we need that built in 7 months. Well, guess where my 2-year time frame just went to? 2 years and 7 months. So now we've got to do the same amount of work, the same amount of time, try to cram that down into 7 months. Some of these phases will be skipped to accommodate that time frame. It's not ideal, it's just the way it is when it comes to the schedule. Next, we move into inventory and analysis. This is where we start finding the nuts and bolts of what we're talking about. Inventory analysis is a nice professional way of saying what's there, what are we trying to do, and answer the questions of so what? Well, what does that mean? We go through a whole internal design process to answer those questions and to identify if the project identified previously needs to be altered, enhanced, or at some times eliminated. We also will review purchase agreements, our natural resource management plans. We'll look at funding. Sometimes when we get outside funding for projects, there are what we like to call strings attached. So we look at what those strings are, what it means in terms of the project, what does it mean in terms of schedule, and then how do we move forward with that. And again, you're going to keep seeing schedule on a lot of these phases as we move forward. Schedule will dictate the amount of time spent on each phase of the design process, particularly for the new park development. Concept design phase is taking that inventory and analysis and turning it into a program. What are going to be the physical features of that park? That's our first stab of saying, what do we want to do there? How do we want to enhance the visitor experience for all park users? And ultimately, this is where we like to see both staff input and public input before the program is completed. Once that is done, that tends to go to the board for a review of, hey, here's what we're thinking, here's what the staff is saying, here's what the public is saying, here's what we are proposing in reaction to that. And then at this time, conceptual design is when you start seeing a lot of this. You'll start seeing a lot of the cost estimates showing up. Because now we've got a preliminary program, we have an idea of what that means. We track costs for every bid item, for every bid project, by every contractor that we've done in the last 9 years. So when we prepare an estimate, it's based upon what we have seen for projects that were bid here at the Park District. It isn't we called up Joe's Landscaping and got a quote. It is we went back through 10 years of unit by unit items, whether it's square foot, square yards, cubic yards. This is what we're seeing. Yes, we accommodate for inflation, we accommodate for quantity of that item, but once we start at concept design, it's our role and responsibility to help inform the board of what this project ID is going to cost. And then also restart refining the schedule. And then we move down into the master plan. The concept goes straight into the master plan. We finalize the program. We continue with the staff input, and we also continue with the public input. This graphic is actually the master plan for Orchard Hills Park. And if any of you were at the public input meetings for Orchard Hills Park, you'll recognize this slide because it's a lot of the same content. The master plan is not developed until we've gone through the levels of input. Then ultimately back to the board for review. And then we start going back through the process of what we saw at concept design, which is the cost estimates get revised based upon the new information, the schedule gets revised based upon the new information, and then we start preparing for internal budgets. Our budgets are actually due. Michelle talked about that briefly earlier, which is coming up this month. We have to have the whole prior or future year identified in terms of what we want to spend the November prior. So that's why it's important that the projects be identified early enough into the year so that if they need to be built year 2, we've had the time to get the appropriate dollars in the appropriate channels. We also talk about 8 and 9. This is where we start talking about who's going to build it. We have a general idea, we have a general schedule, we have a general idea of what we're going to be doing. How are we going to build it? Are we going to do it internal? Are we going to do it external and bid the project? Or are we going to do it a combination of both? You'll find that the majority of our projects are a combination of both. Sometimes we bid the larger parts. If it's outside of our wheelhouse in terms of trade, we'll do that. If it's not, we'll do it internally as much as we can. And then if we need a consultant, that's when we go through the consultant selection phase. From master plan, we go to design development. And design development is really predicated on whether or not a consultant is on board or not. If a consultant is on board, a lot of our time is spent administering the consultant in taking the master plan to construction documents. So these two items generally, if it's outsourced, that's where we're spending our time. If it's done internal, we're actually manually doing those two things with staff here at the park. This is where you're going to see a lot of department-specific staff input. And that's very heavily weighted towards the planning department because we're involved with taking it through these phases. We generally know what is happening at this point. We're comfortable with what we think it's going to cost, but based upon the level of design, we will continue to update the cost estimates as we move through the process, and we will also continue to update the schedule as we move through. And again, the graphic here, that's just simply a cover sheet for the Maple Highlands Trail South design development drawings. So you can see if we go back, pretty pictures tend to stop at the master plan phase. Design development starts turning into the nuts and bolts and how are we going to build it. Permitting always happens between design development and construction documents. If it doesn't happen there, sometimes design development is omitted, but you move from master plan. In order to get a permit, you generally have to prepare some sort of design development document. Not all the times, but most of the time. And again, the permitting is like design development. Sometimes we outsource that with consultants, sometimes we do not. We do it internally. If we do it internally, we will continue to administer that with the same level that we would with an outside consultant. And 2 through 6 are just some of the typical permitting bodies that we deal with. 2 is soil and water. 3 is the EPA. That's typically linked to grants or restroom installation. The Army Corps, that's generally linked with stream crossings, any wetlands impacts or wetland creation. And then 5 and 6, any grant-specific entity that we have to deal with, they want to have a say in terms of the permit. And finally, ultimately, the state or local building department. And that's just a letter from the Department of the Army authorizing Maple Highlands Trail South. So all of that happens up until the construction documents. We take design to development and we work out all of the kinks, hoping that there's less kinks here than what there was between here and the master plan phase, and turn those into construction documents that include specifications, drawings, and anything that would be needed to build the project. Again, sometimes consultants help us with the process, sometimes they don't. At this stage, there's another board review and authorization or approval to bid the project. Ohio Revised Code requires us to get board approval to bid the project, and just like all the other phases, the cost estimate and the schedule is updated to reflect the current level of design. And then ultimately, if you remember the first slide, and we'll see that here in a couple slides, this is typically at the end of the year, which is right about now. So now we're finishing up Maple Highlands Trail Chardon and Maple Highlands Trail South. We are working on Throwing Meadows and Headwaters, which I mentioned before. They're already in this, going through this phase, and so we're trying to get those ready to bid as we're finishing up last year's projects. So the cycle is cyclical and just continues from year 1 to year 2 and so forth. Bidding and award, again, sometimes we have help, sometimes we don't. We are set up to do all this internally if need be. Bidding is outlined and predicated by the Ohio Revised Code. Some projects require prevailing wage rate coordination. We do our own prevailing wage rate coordination. Once we get the bids, planning reviews all of that, sends a recommendation up to the executive director and then on to the board. And it is up to the board to make a motion to award the contract. Once that is done, planning works on finalizing the agreements, which were all part of the construction documents, so we're not writing anything at that point. We've already written it. It's just now getting the signatures that we need to move forward. And then ultimately, once we have all of the signatures, insurance, and so forth, we issue the notice to proceed, and we're off to the races, weather permitting. And again, the construction administration phase, I'm showing consultant versus internal administration. We do get outside help when we need it if it's something that's outside of our comfort level. But for the most part, we do most construction administrative work internal. And whenever I was at the podium earlier, you heard the results of that. Doing the cost saves us money if we do it internal, and it also allows us to have a hand in making the decisions that need to be made when there are guys in the field and the clock is ticking. We also issue staff and public notices as needed. If there's going to be any impacts to the parks, you've seen all the orange barricades and the orange signs. Although they're not the same as what you see on the highways, it gets the same result. We will continue to monitor the budget. We will continue to monitor the schedule until the construction is complete. And one thing that we've done here for my entire tenure is every contract document that we have and every one that we prepare for physical improvements to the parks includes a 1-year warranty. So anything that goes wrong with that project or anything that's not performing as outlined in the construction documents, the contractor is required to come back, repair that at no additional cost to the park. And that was around the horn. So we're back to the original slide. You can see the year again that we talked about, January to December. We're somewhere in between here right now with the future projects. Anywhere between January and April we'll bid for the Freud Meadows and Headwaters Park, and we'll move along. I know that was a lot of data, but are there any questions?
It's a very good presentation.
Thanks. Can we turn on the light slowly so we don't freak your eyes out? Thank you. So this is another shot. Thank you, Erin.
You're welcome.
You have before you Budget Amendment Number 9. It represents a certification as well as appropriation transfer, both of which we are requesting at this time to change the amounts that we have budgeted, certification meaning revenue, amounts that we had requested that or thought we would be receiving at this time. Some accounts go up, some accounts go down, as you can see, as well as the appropriation transfer to move some amounts that we requested to spend from the workers' comp account into some various other accounts as listed attached. Do you have any questions about that? This is something we usually do in November as far as the certification, and you'll see one more in December. Something we have to do. We have to become almost as close to the penny as we can with our certifications for the audit purposes. So you'll definitely see another certification in December.
I didn't have any questions. Do you have any questions?
No, not on this, but just curiosity, have we had any work comp claims this year?
Looking at Robin, she says no.
Do you mean new because we had an unemployment claim, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, no workers' comp on unemployment.
All right. But actually, I will need a resolution for that.
So,
Yeah. Resolution 2914. Vote yes. Yes, I second it. Sorry.
Mr. Johnston?
yes.
Mrs. Shomley?
Yes.
I just realized the next one.
Yeah, your surplus property too, Michelle, sorry.
Sorry, I'll do it from this side. We do have some items to be declared surplus. There's a total of 8 items. Some of them can be a quantity of more than one. They include various items from a projector to a television, which we are requesting to scrap because we have tried to sell it 3 times now at the auction site and it didn't sell. At this point, we feel we can scrap it. It's old, 35-inch, tube TV, nobody wants it, I guess. The largest item on there is a dump truck, which we just feel it's time that we get rid of this particular dump truck, and they do have a different one in for 15, is that correct? For 15.
That's what I was going to ask. So is this mileage that we're getting rid of this dump truck? Is it maintenance? Where are we on it?
It's maintenance costs.
Okay. I have no problems with the surplus property. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the surplus property presented to us. November 5th, inclusive of items 1 through 8.
Second.
Mrs. Shelby?
Vote yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Okay, Commissioner's time. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Not today.
Okay, I do. I wanted to address the crowd and let you all know that I think most of you are here because you feel that this board has put recreation on the same level as preservation and conservation. And that is not at all accurate. Right now, we have less than 3% of our parks as developed properties or recreation. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that in the future we're not going to have any further development. We are. As we change some of the physical features at Frowe Meadow and add an additional parking lot, Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong here, an additional parking lot, that's more recreation, although it's already an existing property that's deemed recreation.
Yeah, we're just paving the last bay that was part of the original design in terms of phase 1. The capacity is just not being met with what we're seeing in terms of use on the weekends and holidays.
Okay, next item there would be the observation deck, which we don't have any plans yet, correct?
No, you're going to have everything at the December meeting.
Okay. But, so that is already on existing acreage that's deemed recreation, correct?
It's on the developed portion of the property.
So when we say that we've added more facilities, if it's already on existing acreage, it's not included as additional percentages taken away. Do you all understand what I'm saying to you? Yeah?
No.
No? Okay. Let me go over it again for those that weren't here last time. Recreation and development are synonymous terms at Geauga Park District. Recreation is driveways, parking lots, trails, pavilions, facilities inside and out that would include the outhouses and mowed and maintained areas. So if we look at it, we go to NRM, which I do as a board member, and say, here's this piece of property, before would anyone would even consider looking at developing it in any way, what natural resource, plant, or animal is here that should not ever be disturbed? So you all need to understand that in going forward, we have far more acreage, and John, I'm going to let you speak to it, that is in preservation that will never be touched. And sad to say, I know some of you have paid for it, you are not ever going to see it. Because the people that came over here from Europe that wanted to go in the caves had no intention of bringing a fungus to the bats in the United States that would really wipe out the bat population. And we can't afford for people to go in some areas of the parks to destroy the preservation of these parks. So that's what you'll see coming forward. I would also like to note, for you all to note, what we have done to get people to try to connect to the park district and see the gem and the beauty that they have here. So I'm going to turn it over to John Boros, who's going to give you a brief update on this year's happening.
Well, first I want to recognize that Rich Frenchie, president of our Geauga Park District Foundation, is with us. Do you have anything for us, Rich? Okay.
No,
I didn't
Thanks.
see him. I apologize.
Thanks for being with us, Rich. I just want to share a little bit about, we see a lot in the papers, we see a lot, and we hear a lot, and we hear you folks. However, I want to speak on behalf of the excellent staff and volunteers at our Geauga Park District. So I just want to spend a little bit of time here during Commissioner's time and going through some of the things that staff has accomplished in September and October, and remind you folks that some of the commentary, it's disappointing to staff. It is. I work for the staff. I work for the parks, and we are in some ways different, in other ways better than ever. We are connecting with people, and some of the items I'm going to mention that staff have accomplished in the last 2 months, we're quite proud of. One of the things we're doing in 2015 is we have a house that we call the Affelder House. It's part of the Westwoods Park. We're making that more accessible to the public. We spent quite a bit of money remodeling that facility a number of years ago, and that will be available for public reservation in 2015. One of the projects one of our planners oversaw this year, Matt McHugh, was brand new asphalt at our Bessie Benner Metzenbaum Park. So we're quite proud of that. We were able to take advantage of a program called ODOT Biennium Funds, where money comes through ODOT to all 88 counties, goes to parks for the paving of roads and parking lots. So we were able to get a brand new surface of asphalt at Bessie Benner Metzenbaum Park. Mary Ruth made mention of it, but we're getting ready for a different phase of park development and park improvement in Florida Meadows. One of the things that our Natural Resource Management Department, one of our land stewards, Bob Lang, spent time doing this year was some wetland improvements for shorebird management. What we have out there is a wetland we can manage for a mud flat, and then mud flat allows different birds to come through, different migratory birds that you typically would not see here in Northeast Ohio, particularly in Florida Meadows. Headwaters Park in 2015, we're gearing up for some improvements there to improve an old boathouse there that the city of Akron has had there for years. In addition, finish the camping there and some other amenities. The concept is on its way for improvements at Headwaters Park. Our Maple Highlands Trail Central, our Maple Highlands Trail period, we're quite proud of that trail. A number of opportunities for a linear park. We've been fighting the weather and Army Corps permits and wetland permits and stream permits and everything else for the last 2 years. And we'll be glad when that project is done and we're close. So we've been working on the last 2 years what we call a Chardon connector between 5th Avenue. It runs up near the Ohio State Troopers Barracks off 44, and we're getting there. So a lot of hard work by our planners. The south section from Grandview Golf Course and Headwaters Park from south all the way to Swine Creek. We are nearly complete with that section of trail. And I just want to stop and recognize the fact that the presentation that Aaron gave and all these projects that I just made mention of, those are all handled by 2 guys with a phenomenal support staff. So everything you saw up there is a lot of work for our staff. Our Natural Resource Management Department, under our park biologist Paul Pira, is working on a management plan for a property called Oakton Property. He's currently working on stream and wetland inventory assessment to ensure the integrity of those natural resources. There are 2 new trails being built. One of them is finished out of Observatory Park. One was done by a contractor. The other one, our operations, our construction crew, they got a late start, and they're well on their way. We had to wait for some Army Corps permits, but a new trail out of Observatory Park. We made mention of our reforestation efforts out of Orchard Hills with help of Cargill volunteers. Bob Lang, our land steward, has been planting a number of tree species for the reforestation of Orchard Hills Park. And Paul has been working on some annual stream and wetland assessments as required by the Army Corps of Engineers. And in case you're wondering, I am going to go on and brag about our staff. So, public survey that many of you have inquired about. Matt McHugh in our planning department, he's solicited a request for proposal to firms that may be able to assist with a public survey. So that is out. We are anticipating, and I know many of you will quote me on this, but we are anticipating, if all goes well, that we can have that survey in place for distribution the first quarter of 2015. Our hope would be to get it back at the end of March of 2015. Talk a little bit about support staff, finance. In the month of September, they processed 184 vouchers for the district. Our volunteer hours for the month of September, 670 hours by our volunteers. Our volunteers are quite committed. We assign a value to that. The value for those 670 hours are $14,338. In 2014, as of September, end of September, we've had 5,492 volunteer hours with a value of $117,529. Thank you, volunteers. Thank you, Sister Julie. I saw you were here for working our desks. Thank you so much. Let's talk a little bit about our naturalists. Just the month of September, limited naturalist staff. How many do we have on naturalist staff, Michelle? She'll think of it here in a minute. That's why I thought 8, but I wanted to confirm with her. Our total attendance at the Westwoods Observatory and at programs just for the month of September were 4,693 people. Our average public program attendance was 72 people per program. Talk a little bit about our Ranger Department. Our Ranger Department in the month of September, they interacted and had conversation with and had 668 visitor contacts in our parks. I'll end with a few points about October. Finance processed 216 vouchers. Our communications department worked on a number of publications that you're fortunate enough to see. We're all fortunate enough to see. A tourism ad, a special fall mailing. We do a neat little CD desk calendar that we distribute every year. Our Fall Fest program, a Frozen Fest logo yet to come, a Mistletoe Market logo. Go on and on about the folks in communications, graphics, and graphics design. In October, our volunteer hours were 521, total value of $11,149. Back to our naturalists. Our total attendance at the Westwoods Observatory and our programs just for the month of October was 1,741 people, with an average public program attendance of 45. And there were 88 programs held in the month of October. I could go on and on and on and on, but our staff and our great parks are what makes Geauga Park District. And the facts are, we continue. I don't even take credit for myself. Our staff continues to do a number of great things for your parks. Everything from programs. I didn't even get to brag on HR, IT, and all the other different support roles. Everything our operations staff does throughout the week. We get comments regularly on how clean our parks are, how safe our parks are, how cordial our staff are. So, a couple receipts just from this week. We call these patron receipts. Yeah, let me brag on the operations department as a former operations director. Everyone was very complimentary on the facility. We hope to come back next summer when we can take advantage of the trails and playground. We had participants from Lake, Geauga, and Summit counties, and all had nothing but good things to say. That was Orchard Hills Park. Sunnybrook Preserve, the park worker that came to check on things and drop off firewood was a very nice young man. This is an asset to your park system. The date we used the park was 10/26/14. Our programs, Dan and his crew, Mike, Carrie, and Kevin, were great as usual. Here's one for my wife. Kimberly was really excited about the spiders. We identified one, correctly I hope. When we get home, she also started a spider journal and was drawing spider and spider clothing, shoe rings, etc. We love the parks and are never disappointed with the programs. I say it every time. Norva Explorer is awesome with the kids. She knows her stuff, communicates in a way that can be understood, and is enthusiastic. What an asset to the Geauga County Park District. Thank you so much. We had fun. This is about Nature at Night Astronomy Station. A formal letter will be forthcoming, but the knowledge, professionalism, and exuberance of Chris Mentrick are exceptional. And I could go on and on and on. But I want to assure you folks, this staff continues to do great things for your Geauga Park District. And I will go as far as saying there's a lot of misinformation out there, and that is a shame. And I will end with that. Sure.
Did you have anything to bring here? No?
Very good.
Okay, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and open it to the public, and before I do, I'm going to say that it is 6:35, so we are going to be finished with public comment at 7:05. And I'm going to ask that everyone keep it to a 3-minute comment. Please try to listen carefully to what's been said previous to you so that we're not hearing the exact same thing over and over. If you have the exact same thing to say, I would say come to the microphone and say, I agree with that person, or I second that same opinion. John, you want to open the comments from people?
Is there anyone out in the hall?
There are people out in the hall.
Yeah.
Come on in.
We would love to hear from some people we have not heard from before. So, you want to go first? Joy, we've heard from you. Mr. Walton. Yeah, if you could, when you come to the podium, if you could state just your name, first and last name, where you're from.
Oh, I was going to say, don't stand up.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to try to talk very fast so I get this all done in 3 minutes. I just want to read a couple of things that are in this new edition, which I just picked up when I came in. It says another part of the strategic planning phase will be conducting community-wide surveys of users and non-users, focus groups, and public input meetings. A little bit farther down, we want to know what people may be looking for in their parks. A little farther down, the beauty of obtaining public input throughout the process is that it ensures the final plan mirrors the desires of the people being served. Those are wonderful sentiments, and I hope that we're going to see this in the parks between us and you, because we've been talking at each other, and we're not talking with each other. And I think that talking with people has to start. And I'm a little... one thing that seems to fly, however, against all this is the fact that already changes have been made without public input. I mean, we have suddenly, wham, wham, a new list of uses of the park, including logging and fracking. Boom! A little bit later, that's gone. Okay? Mm-hmm. Things are all of that might have not happened if we had been talking ahead of time, if the public has a chance to do it. And the public can't do it in 3-minute buttons like this. So I'm suggesting that you really do set up some times besides these meetings, which are for nothing else but to sit down and talk about some things in the park. Thank you.
Excuse me, sir, can I get your name?
James Walton.
Sir, the right one, please.
My name is Garrett Meyer, and I've been a Geauga resident now for coming up on 18 years. And some of my greatest memories actually are from when I started off as a child living very close to Beartown Reservation. And I quite honestly was unaware of most of the changes in the park until I read a newspaper article that, asserted some quite serious things in it. So I decided to do some investigating. I contacted the Parks Department and asked for both Mr. Oros and Mr. Curtin's resumes, which I encourage all of you to do as well. Because I put them side by side, and while it is no slight to Mr. Curtin whatsoever, that article that suggested that Mr. Oros was unqualified, I find to be quite slanderous, because I would defy an intelligent person to put those two resumes side by side and deem Mr. Oros inferior, let alone incapable. Secondly, I heard a whole bunch of complaints about possible recreation being added. What way can one possibly enjoy the parks other than to give as many Geauga County residents as possible access in different ways that suits them? I noticed that there was a change in the bylaws today. Recreation and conservation were not omitted from a single thing. One of the few things that I would like to see added to the parks, to every park, quite honestly. In Geauga County, we have a large number of roads that are 35, 45 miles, and let's not kid ourselves, people do far greater in excess of that on these roads. I wouldn't want children that I know that grew up in my neighborhood, or my children, when I stay in Geauga County, riding their bikes on these roads. And the fact that there are only 3 parks in all of Geauga County that offer bike riding in the name of not disturbing others, I find to be laughable. If interaction with others is so disturbing to you, I would not suggest that a community park is the place for you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Sir?
My name is Bill Schwing. I'm a volunteer with the Geauga Park District. I'd like to thank Mr. Oros for acknowledging all of our hard work in the parks. And I want to follow up on some things that Mr. Oros said. Many of the staff in the Geauga Park District have had their jobs retitled, and I'd like to know how these changes to their job titles benefit the employees and benefit the park district. I can also speak as a longtime cyclist. When you're riding mountain bikes, road bikes, cyclocross bikes on trails, you have to be very careful about the other users out there. So I would like everyone in the park district to acknowledge that some uses are not compatible with one another. If you have people on mountain bikes, you have to be very careful about people also riding horses and people hiking on those trails.
In regards to your question, there was a case statement read a couple meetings ago, and I do feel that speaks the best to your question. So early on, we identified with the current Board of Park Commissioners that given the change, given Director Curtin is not here anymore, that some reorganization was necessary. He ran things differently. I as an interim director, will run things differently, and whoever the next executive director will also run things differently. In regards to title changes, we took a look at job descriptions, and what is most pertinent is we brought in our entire management team, and we got their opinion. We got the opinion of 10 people on the management team. Some job descriptions changed, some didn't. So it was part of, as leaders, as managers, sometimes you have to make change to get results, and it was simply part of that. It was a part of change. I'd be happy to provide you with the case statement.
Yes, sir.
I'm married in Geauga, also right across from West Woods. When West Woods went in, I was there when they put the first shoulder pool when they opened the park. I love that park. I don't like to meet bicyclists on unpaved trails. I had a terrible incident with a man. Sunday morning, 9 o'clock, I was walking my dog, he's on a leash. This guy comes barreling down the trail, unpaved, gravel, And I said, you're not supposed to be back here. He said, I can be anywhere I want to be. I said, well, I think I better check with the Rangers. And the Rangers told me, when I called them, that they're not supposed to be on unpaved trails. He also told me, when a dog doesn't know what a bite is because he's not used to it, he said, you know, like a dog barked at him. He said, you better control your dog. I feel very threatened in the parks now. Very, very threatened. I've been in Geauga County since 1969 in the same house on 87. And I've seen a lot of changes. And I'm not happy with what's going on my park. I also want to know, since that last bulletin somebody showed, they said there'd be new signs so we know who's going to be on those trails. Where the heck are they? Where are the signs to tell us who goes where? Thank you. That's all.
Anyone outside? Anyone? I don't know how long the line is out there, but, so.
Yeah.
I am Kathy Hanratty with Sharpen Township, and in the spirit of this new cooperation, I welcome that. I hope that we are able to work together, and we have never ever had any problems with the staff or the employees of the parks. We have been 100% behind them all along. It's some of the untoward changes that were made very suddenly that we had issues with. But in the spirit of this new cooperation, I'd like to, number one, talk about some of the goals that we have, the ways that we would like to work with you, because we really believe that that this is a function of government of our county, and that we would like to have government for the people and by the people together, so that we'll be working with you. So our goals are to work on those bylaws, revoke the current bylaws, and reinstate the pre-July 2014 bylaws until a new rewrite is done. And then reinstate the bylaws' primary mission to the park is conservation over recreation. Because I think that, now you tried to clarify that, but I think that the way that you made that change in those bylaws makes that not clear at all, that conservation is still the primary purpose of the parks. Also require that the board and park personnel conduct business related to the use, disposal, or acquisition of park property in an open forum, because we are somewhat concerned that parcels may be moved or changed in ways that currently the way that the bylaws are written, you can make these changes at one meeting, vote on the bylaws the next before the public even sees it, and that is really not acceptable to the public. Also, any and all surveys and polls of the public about the use or activities allowed on public land should be done in a professional, unbiased way, and the methodology should really mirror that of the 2008 poll that was done, because they did a really good professional job on the 2008 poll, and we would like to see that same kind of methodology used, and it should be evaluated professionally. We'd also like to revise the authority that's listed in the new bylaws to make that executive director position very more attractive to executive director level. And I think John's doing a great job. I have no problem with John at all. But the way that those bylaws were changed to cut out the authority to the director makes that a very difficult position. We'd also like to work with state and local officials long term to revise the state law that makes the way boards are appointed, because I believe that they do need to be more accountable to the public. And thanks for
you that the bylaws revisions are not the first revision that you've seen in the last couple of years. And as a matter of fact, anyone coming in after I leave can go ahead and change the bylaws again.
Can I make a comment about land acquisition? I hear comments about land acquisition and parcels being released and parcels being transferred. Since Executive Director Tom Curtin has left, there have been no new land acquisitions or land deals. Okay? There have been those that have been brought forward because they are not finished, because of different grant opportunities, things of that nature. There's one very small land transport right now from over by our Orchard Hills Park of 0.27 acres. That was started in January of 2013 by Tom Curtin. We were just simply wrapping up the transfer of 0.27 acres between landowners because it gave us better frontage, better access to Orchard Hills Parks. Some of the other ones that you heard Michelle make mention of for grant opportunities, those are former land acquisition deals that are being wrapped up. I personally believe, and we need to hear from the public, we need to hear from the residents of this county, and to take into consideration where we may or may not have land purchase opportunities. We need to hear from all residents of this county. So that is part of why we're moving forward with a new strategic plan in 2015. And there's a hold on land acquisition at this time. Yeah, the only reason I'm hesitating is I would like to hear from someone that we haven't heard from already.
I've never been at the podium.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Webb. I live in Munson Township, and I want to say that I very much appreciated the PowerPoint program I heard tonight. It explained the process. It was very clear, very detailed, and I'm wondering, I have some questions about how the board operates. There was a meeting in September. The meeting in October was canceled. I'm wondering if in between the September meeting and tonight's meeting, November, have two or more of the board members, 2 or 3 of the board members met together on any occasion? No.
And let me just jump in. I requested the meeting be switched till tonight due to the fact that I'm going to be out of state next week, and I wanted to be at the meeting.
Oh, I understand, but there was a meeting canceled last month.
And last month, unfortunately, due to some personal issues, I wasn't able to make it. So I understand it's an unpaid board, and unfortunately, occasionally.
Right. Well,
if you look at my attendance record as a councilman in Burke over 12 years, I probably missed maybe 3 or 4 meetings.
I will. You know, I got the clock ticking, and I know other people.
I'll give you my time back. But I'm just saying, there's no conspiracy theory on why we're changing meetings.
I'm just asking, really, if 2 or 3 of you met, you said no.
Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, it was news to us that Mr. Mucci resigned. We had no idea until we watched it.
I'm just curious, how do you conduct business? How do you pay bills? Doesn't it have to be done in accordance with sunshine laws in a meeting? No?
We pay bills under the guises of our in-house purchasing finance guidelines, and that goes back to the Ohio Revised Code. The board has given me approval up to.
We have different approval levels within our purchasing guidelines that John can approve up to a certain level and I can approve up to a certain level. And as long as we adhere to those, we can continue operations. There's no way that the changes that were made, I don't even remember, January, whenever they were made, they didn't stop us from operating. And that was the point that we were making back then. The $500 threshold was probably something you're in your mind thinking of. That was something that we had to have some kind of exception to the rule. You know, you can't stop us from continuing to operate. For instance, payroll is always over $500. So there was exceptions to the rules, utilities, maintenance type items, and we were given a threshold within those amounts. John and myself were given a threshold as well. And they were revised later on as well. So no, we were able to continue to operate without that meeting. But the approval that you saw tonight were for those items that we could not approve with the pre-approval event.
You know, since these issues are now on the minds of a lot of people, it might be clarifying if there was a presentation or information on your website about how the board then operates, how the sunshine laws apply. because that might clear some things up for people. And I appreciate all the comments about getting public input. I understand that under the past administration and past boards, that there were regular, perhaps monthly, town hall type meetings in townships to get just such input from the public as just how they operated, you know?
Are you asking, or?
Well,
Not from the finance side, right?
No, it would have been, no. It would
No, the public input meetings that we had would have been going on 3 years now. For the new park development, this is what we did with the town hall meetings. We did a series of 2 public input meetings for each park. We went to them prior to the concept design even being identified, asked them what they wanted to see. We documented every comment that was made. We actually wrote it down in front of everybody. We brought it back, documented it, put it in the minutes, came up with a concept, went back to the community, got their feedback from that second meeting, and then moved forward with the master plan. Just like I outlined.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time.
Hi, good evening. My name is Geauga. I live across the street from Sunnybrook Preserve on Heath Road. I would like to know why half of the walking trail was removed. Who made that decision? I was told in an email exchange that this was to right previous wrongs and broken promises. I was involved with Sunnybrook when they were developed, and I was unaware of any broken promises. I know there was a group of political extremists that were opposed to the park in any way, shape, form, or manner. And my understanding and my assumption at this point, this was a payback to that group in helping them to remove part of the park.
Well, let me address that, because it was in no way a payback, and that is an incorrect assumption. 2/10 of a mile of trail were removed, because that trail was within 20 feet of the neighbor's property.
The same neighbors who have 5 acres of property and decided to build their house on their property line. That trail that you said, also in our email exchange, you told me there were 2 other paved trails there at Sunnybrook. There are not. Which also leads me to the assumption that you don't know what's going on at the park system.
I've been there and I've walked them. So
There is one paved trail at that park.
No,
and it
you
was
could
just
go
under
around.
5/10 of a
You
mile.
could go straight, or you could go around, or you could go around this way. Now you can go around and sit at the bench, or you can go straight. And there's
Now,
gonna be a
I use that
difference.
park every day, and I have seen countless people from Metzenbaum, handicapped, disabled people, seniors, dog walkers use that trail. Now they can no longer use that trail.
Okay, well, I guess I'm a bit confused, because the entire trail was 4/10 of a mile that you're talking of was paved.
Yes.
So you're telling me they drove to Sunnybrook to be on 4/10 of a mile of paved trail?
Yes.
So
Yes, in the wintertime, yes.
Okay, so I guess I'm asking you, should we add more paved trail then?
I want to know why you spent money to take apart a good of a sound part of the park infrastructure. Who made that decision and why? I was told it was to right the wrong of broken promises, but I'm unaware of any broken promises because I was there when that park was developed and I was part of that process.
The Board of Park Commissioners made the decision prior to Brian, and we removed the trail, based on what Mayor just told you.
But when I listened to you in the beginning of this presentation that you made, you talked about adding recreational areas and activities. Here you are in the same group, in the same room, in the same meeting, taking that away from people.
I guess we'll have to look at that again. I think more importantly, we had people complaining that they could see into the neighbor's yard and the neighbor's driveways eroding onto the side of the park, and we had all kinds of other issues. As much as Mrs. Toth is complaining that Ms. Toth is complaining that she's got someone in the park that obviously was rude and unacceptable behavior to you, we'll have to work on some of these things.
Now, I sincerely believe, after hearing you and understanding and investigating this park, and your limited knowledge of the park system, and when I go back to my time and involvement when Sunnybrook was developed, and the group of political extremists who were in opposition to the mere existence of the park system, it just looks like you're trying to tear it apart piece by piece.
Sorry you feel that way. I can't change it. John. Yeah, it's almost time. John can talk. He knows he's good at that.
Longer way. My name is John Leach. I was a former park commissioner, and I wasn't expecting to say anything tonight. But I heard something that I think is very important. It's important for everybody here. First of all, we've got a lot of enthusiasm in this county for this park district. It includes the people who work in the park, and I know a lot of them personally, and I had the opportunity to see what they can do and what they're continuing to do, and we should be very, very pleased that they're here, that John's here, that the park commissioners are here. Now, we've had our differences. There are times that it's actually making me embarrassed to say that I live in Geauga County, which I hate to say. I hate to say that. But we can do better. And what I heard tonight was a little bit of an entree, maybe from Mary Ruth or maybe from Brian, but they're willing to listen. And if we can get a small group of people together, because we're here to protect the parks, not to fight it with one another. And we're going to get nowhere if we just keep this up in the newspapers. But all of it, when you look at the enthusiasm that this group that are wearing these t-shirts has for these parks, is incredible. I didn't even know you people existed when we were in the parks before, but we're going forward. We're not going to look at the past. Let's do it together. And we can do it, I think, with a step by having a smaller group get together with the commissioners and some of the key employees, help work out how we gather public information so we're not just sailing by one another and not talking, because we owe ourselves to not spend our time this way. We're wasting our time and we're not getting anywhere. And I know we can, because we've got the enthusiasm to say we want the best parks in the state. We have them. We don't want them to be destroyed. And I think everybody in this room feels that way. So let's get at that. And if you people are willing to have a small group to get together, I think it will only be practical to start that way. And then have, perhaps you want town hall meetings, whatever it is. But let's get away from this fighting in the newspaper. Let's protect our parks.